Hello friends, welcome to Inktober Day 2! Today's prompt from the Greek mythology list, which you can find in my Instagram feed, is Circe, who is one of my new favourite, or relatively new favourite Greek figures from mythology. She is a goddess and kind of a witch. That's her thing. So I'm going to talk a little bit more about Circe and what she represents in the video. But yeah, I feel like there's quite a progression between, or there's quite a departure between day 1 and day 2. I try out some different techniques and I think they're a little more successful than in day 1, and I did actually plan this one out vaguely. So I've got this sheet of paper with a bunch of colours on, and this is my tiny little plan. So you'll get to see very shortly how this turns into an actual finished artwork. So without further ado, or a don't, let's get on with Circe. Once again, this is very sped up. So the whole thing took me around 3 hours. That seems to be about the time it takes me to do the colouring on one of these things, and it's probably a good idea to end it at that, because otherwise, you know, it's always, you know, when is a piece finished? And I keep looking back at these and thinking, oh, I could add this, I could add that, but at some point, especially when you're doing a 30-day challenge, it's worth stopping and saying, okay, that's done. It's finished. So here we have Circe, who is a goddess and a witch from Greek mythology. She is best known for her appearance in the Odyssey, Homer's Odyssey. She meets Odysseus on her island, but more recently she has come to the attention of the world through Madeline Miller's book, which is called Circe. And yeah, it sort of pads out her story a lot more and goes into her in a lot more depth. And so she is an exile, Circe is, and she is exiled, we think at the beginning, because she doesn't have powers and because she isn't really useful. And we find out later that actually she has a lot of powers, and in many ways she is more powerful than a lot of the people who banished her. So her story is a lot about female power and how female power is feared in mythology and even to this day. So I think that's why this story really resonates with people, is because, you know, there's nothing more scary to the world than a sort of well-educated and knowledgeable woman, because we know stuff. So yeah, that kind of the literacy side of things and the power side of things is really interesting to me, and it works its way into sort of a deeper history of witchcraft as well, and women being persecuted for having knowledge that they shouldn't, or that society thinks that they don't need and shouldn't have. So yeah, Circe really resonates with me for that reason, and the imagery around Circe has a lot to do with nature, because her powers are to do with nature and making things grow, and they're very sort of, they're powers that would be associated more so with women sort of growing and nurturing and all of those things that are so feared in her world. So there are a few symbols that are associated with her, one being her lion, another being pigs, because she turned a bunch of men into pigs, which is endlessly hilarious. And yeah, like I said, she's best known from her sort of cameo appearance in the Odyssey, but yeah, I wanted to sort of lean into her powers of creation and using flowers and herbs in the natural world in kind of witchcraft. So here we have got a bunch of flowers, a whole lot of pink and green in the background, which is to mimic the green of her dress and the pink of her lips and the warm colours of her skin. I've made her darker skinned than Artemis, partly because I want to include a variety of skin tones in this, but also she would spend more time outside than Artemis would. Well, Artemis spends a lot of time outside, but she's the goddess of the night, and she sort of hunts at night and all that jazz. So yeah, Circe seemed like much more of a daytime kind of earthy presence. So that's why I've depicted her like that, and those really warm tones worked well, and that's what I felt I was missing on the first go with the Artemis drawing. So I really lent into the warmth of this. And I mean, if you look at the cover that Bloomsbury did of Circe, both the US and the UK editions, they both use very warm colours inspired by Greek vases, a lot of copper and bronze colours. So that's something I add in a little bit later, once I've got around all this black around the outside, which took a long time. Yeah, so what you didn't see there, I didn't record, was filling in this kind of swoosh, which could represent magic, or it could be some kind of shroud or something that she's wearing. And then, yeah, here I'm using a dip pen. Yeah, fun times. I've never used one of these before. I made a mistake right at the beginning, putting too much ink on and kind of blotching it a bit. But what I like about this is that you can get quite a lot of control, which is always nice, and it's more environmentally friendly than using other pens, so using gel pens and things. And I would like to be using more of this because of the environmental factor. You can buy bottles of ink and then use the dip pen with those, and you can get a variety of colours because of that. So yeah, it was really good for these lines, and I've got many more lines planned out for future designs. So the line work was quite important, and I needed to be able to do that in a variety of colours. So yeah, with the copper here, I'm using the dip pen, and then I went in with a brush to do the title. And the lettering that I used here is just it's a very basic script. It's kind of based on my handwriting a little bit, maybe a little bit more cursive than my handwriting is, but yeah, I wanted something that was quite flowing, quite organic, and that echoed the shapes within the piece itself, because the more you can do that in a piece, the more you can have, say, lots of circles or lots of similar curves or lots of triangular shapes or whatever shape you choose. The more you repeat those forms, the more unified the whole piece will feel. So that's something I try to do as much as possible. Here I am going in with a black pen. This is a graphic pen, just to add a bit more detail to the flowers, and then I also go around the outside of the text just to make it a bit bolder, because this is going to be a notebook. I am going to be making these available at the end. Oh, here we are, it's the next day, and I'm just finishing this off by going around the outside with that same felt tip pen, which just brings it all together, makes the title stand out enough. And yeah, that's pretty much it for this piece. I'm much more pleased with how this one turned out than the previous one, and I think it's given me a good idea that that's what I want to focus on, is kind of the pattern side of things. I love the dip pen. I need to be better at controlling it, but for the most part it's really good. It gives you very fine lines and still a little bit of an organic feel to it as well. You can see the texture of where that ink, the metallic ink, sort of sits on top of the paper. Oh, and it's so shiny. I just love including metallic things. So there we go, folks. That's Inktober day 2 done. And day 3 is going to be Persephone, which I know is a crowd favourite. So that's very exciting. And I'm quite happy with the concept I did for this next one. So yeah, happy to be sharing that with you. As for Circe, like I said, I'm pretty pleased with how this one turned out. It's definitely given me more of a sense of direction with Inktober, and it's reassuring me that I can do this, and that you know, I can power through and it will be okay. There will definitely be more challenges along the way, which is why I'm sharing this, so that it can give you some encouragement, because I know Inktober is a hard thing to do, and especially if you're trying to fit it around full-time work and a family and all that. So yeah, that is what's happening, and I will see you tomorrow for Persephone, Queen of the Underworld. Bye.